Nuanced Beauty is a podcast where we try to tease out the complexity, or as I say, the nuance, in any given topic so that we can acknowledge the tension there and hold space to see the beauty in it, the beauty in ourselves and the beauty in others and relationships. It's not easy seeing beyond our own opinions, but there's wisdom in the pursuit. So join us. Hi guys, welcome back to Nuanced Beauty.
Hey everybody.
So today,
I just had a drive down to Tampa. I've had actually a couple of work trips recently, and I've run a little bit out of things to listen to. So I went back and I listened to some of the early episodes of Nuanced Beauty, the
joy.
Bill episodes of Nuanced Beauty.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ones that I listened to was the episode on personality tests, which is an interesting episode because it's something that I think Christina introduced into our relationship,
Right.
but it's something that we've both had a lot of thought into and a lot of work into,
and also had a lot of hesitation and interest.
We'll get to that,
Mm-hmm.
but we before we go back in time in the present, we can say, hey, there's a lot of fruit with that, hey, let's talk about it again. This time with me here.
Yeah, and before we do that, what'd you think of my episode, huh? Oh, I put you on the spot.
I'm a host now because of the quality of those episodes.
Oh, yeah, but you did say you really appreciated how I had the pros and the cons. How, as much as you hate the idea of listing out pros and cons or like the good and not so good,
I didn't say I hate it.
Yeah.
What I hate is having sitting in a
death by
position
PowerPoint.
I told you to use PowerPoint. That was my advice to you.
But there was beauty in the nuance.
The two bits of advice I gave Christina on those early episodes was, yes, use PowerPoint because it will slow you down having PowerPoint because you'll only have the couple of lines at a time in front of you. And also to go slow because you're probably talking faster than you think.
Mm-hmm.
And Christina has followed my advice
too well.
One time in our relationship, and this was the one time. And so,
okay, well,
the content was great.
All right, fine. Well, get to it. What do you got to say about personalities?
Well, let's start. There's a saying in the northern Midwest, when you don't know where to start, go back to the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So I had nothing to do with this, and not that I'd put a lot of thought in a personality test, but had you asked me, I'd think they were pretty hokum, and for a couple of reasons. The first is, I think people are just far too complex to be boxed into 9 or 16 or 32 or depending 4. Some of these are as little as 4 things. The colors are only 4 colors.
The disc.
Is that disc?
I think the disc has 4 colors. Yeah.
And
red, yellow, green, and blue. Maybe.
I feel like because these are so often used in the corporate world, specifically Myers-Briggs.
Yes.
That it just reeks of HR trying to enforce a paradigm onto me.
Look what we have to contribute. You all can learn from this.
Yes. Look, my benevolence, my beneficence as an HR person, here is my value, and it's more than yours because of my Myers-Briggs. And so I just had a kind of resentment towards the concept because of the kind of corporate paradigm that I've seen it used. But also when I have seen it used, and this remains true, person to person, often there is a you called it navel gazing, which I appreciated. There's a
self-obsession.
A self-obsession. There's the word.
Mm-hmm.
It's and I you could say that there is value in reflection, and we're going to get into that the true value, but in a post-social media world, it just felt a little too vain,
like too much, because we're already so self-absorbed today.
Yes. I just want to, and because it's external, something like a personality test, you are transferring power to something else to tell you who you are,
Okay.
rather than sitting in the deep reflection of learning who it is you are and shaping who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You are telling somebody else, who am I? And in a very real way, that's what we do when we talk to God. In a different way, we are asking HR, who am I? And
Uh-huh.
that is not the authority that I want to cast my identity onto.
Mm-hmm. So back to the
So
beginning.
back to the beginning, you
Yeah.
stumbled on the Enneagram, and I don't
Uh-huh.
remember anymore
I
why.
think probably an interview on the Happy Hour with Suzanne Stabile, I think, was where I first heard of it. And so then from there, they mentioned like different podcasts that she does that
Mhm.
is called the Enneagram Journey.
Highly recommend.
Yeah, it's a very entertaining and thoughtful podcast.
Mhm.
Um, and I one of the first episodes was specifically like this couple that was a female 8 and a male 9, which is what Bill and I
I
are.
promise you, I will very, very briefly describe these, but they're not important now.
Uh-huh.
Then the important thing is that these folks reflected
They reflected a
our
lot
relationship.
of our struggles, and
Mhm.
like just a lot of the things that was said in this episode was just like, wow,
Been there, man.
that sounds very eerily similar.
This podcast is about me.
And so I actually read The Path Between Us
Yeah,
first.
you if I recall, big user of the library in Seattle,
Uh-huh.
and you put
And
both of them on hold, and The Path Between Us
came first.
came
I
first,
think so.
even though it's technically the second book in a series of books.
Yeah, and it's also it starts with like the number 8 and she's describing 8 the number 8 blah, it starts with the number 8 and she's describing a female 8 in a business setting.
So
And it just made
just
a
to
lot
get
of
this out of the
sense.
way, so I stop making promises. The Enneagram, if you're not familiar, is a personality idea, a personality paradigm that categorizes people into one of 9 types. And there's a lot that goes into, you're this type, but you also share some traits of that type, or you're
When
this
you're
type, share some.
stressed and when you're comfortable, you give
Yeah,
2 other numbers and then either
there's a
number on your
chart.
other side.
It looks very occult if you just like
Yeah.
Google the chart.
And there's some other interesting stuff there
And
that I've
there's
learned
some
about
other
the
stuff there, and it's
creation of
neat
that's
and
kind of,
whatever, and
oh,
we'll get back to some occult stuff later. But it the 1,000-foot view is that it categorizes people into roughly 9, and there's again a lot more to it, but that's the starting point. And for whatever reason, this particular author never goes from, when she's describing it, from 1 to 9. She always starts from 8, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
uh-huh.
And there's reasons. I don't think they're great ones, but anyway, she started with 8, and Christina, as it
So it
happens.
just resonated. I was like, oh, yeah. And
Mhm.
it was just thoughtful. And so read that book and then read the second book. And then it brought a lot out for me. It just gave language to how people process and knowing my how feeling super different than a lot of people,
Mhm.
but not being able to name the differences or why the heck this seems so not like we're jiving.
Yeah, I think there's a level, and I'm speaking for you, and you can tell me I'm wrong about it, but I'm not going to stop believing this. There's a level of, why can't other people just be like me?
Or why don't other people get it?
Why don't you get it?
Yeah.
That's a better
It's
way of
not that I
saying it.
want them to be like me. I don't care what they're like. Um,
Such an 8.
yeah.
We'll come back to why it's a problematic statement. But
Uh,
yes, why don't you get this is something that I heard from her often in the first, was it 8 years of our marriage?
yeah. Yeah. The first 5 or 6.
Whatever it was, we got into this. Anyway,
So Bill begrudgingly went ahead and he
yeah, I thought it
redid
was
the books.
bullcrap, but I love you, so I read it anyway.
Uh-huh.
And uh,
It made some sense.
it's a fairly common testimony of, and I use the word testimony very lightly, of people who put in this study where they read the description of the number that ends up being theirs, and they just hate it. because it just
Oh, right. They feel exposed, I think is the way
yeah,
they
well,
talk
I
about
think
it.
a
But
lot of personality tests highlight, "Oh, you're such a great person, and you're kind, and you're empathetic, and you have high emotional intelligence, and that's why you're a blah, blah, blah."
oh, yeah,
Whereas the
like
Enneagram,
Myers-Briggs kind of, it's
yeah,
more like these are your strengths.
these are your
And it
strengths,
talks a little bit about how this strength is a weakness, but it really
but it
nails
really
in
doesn't.
like
Like,
these all are positive.
yeah. So you
Yeah.
kinda come through with an ego boost on most things, but the way this author frames the Enneagram, and I can't speak for other teachers of it, but the way this author describes it is, here are all the things that make you that you suck. You suck for this list of reasons. And I'm like, "These are the list of reasons that I suck."
Yeah.
Uh, and as it happens, the things that are my particular weaknesses are things that, Christina would really rather I would less weak at
Yeah.
because of the things that her particular weaknesses.
Uh-huh.
So our
So we learned a lot and we got a lot of language from it. And even going back like a couple years before, we looked at the Enneagram like personality test.
did we?
No, a couple years before that, I remember like being with people who were talking about Myers-Briggs, like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm a blah, blah, blah. And I remember you and I having a conversation in the car about like specifically how much it bothered us going back to the start of this episode about this idea of putting someone in a box and characterizing them. And it seems super shallow and like it doesn't seem wise to just like, oh, I'm this and oh, I'm that.
We what we really came to realize is the benefit that we had in being able to sit in reflection about why we are,
Yeah, how we process.
and yeah, why we process, but even just like why do we do the things that we do,
Mhm.
uh, and having a common language. Uh, to speak those things to one another in our marriage was hugely helpful. We're talking a lot about the Enneagram because that was the particular thing that hit us at the time that it caught with us. But I don't think it's unique to the Enneagram. I think any of these tools,
Allow a ability to reflect.
because they're tools, and like any tool could be used for good or ill, and
Yeah.
so the goal I think for any of these is the process, which is why I hate the any testing, because the testing isn't a process. The testing is a quick answer. The process, the
Yeah.
goal is the process. The process is the reflection. Anytime you
Mhm.
can just sit and think about, process through.
And I think that probably would explain why, um, the cheesy test that's like, "What's your mocktail?" or like, "What's
Which
your
friends member
holiday
are you?
coffee?"
Which, by the way, I
Yes.
did take that test,
Which
and
friends?
yes, and the answer was, could you be any more like Chandler? And it's so true. It's so me.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So
So,
those are on the side of just taking a test and trying to, caricature,
mhm.
specific
But
traits, right?
and again, I'm so against testing, but let's take even that. If you took that and you sat with it, could I be any more like Chandler?
Is there potential for growth here or
Well, and
reflection or,
that show is on the air for 10
acceptance?
years. There's actually a pretty large depth to that character, and you can really learn a
Mhm.
lot through that story. So again, the reflection and the growth that you can have.
Who do you think I'd
Uh,
be?
oh, you're Monica. On Monica was an Enneagram 1, but that's the closest that we'd get
Oh,
to
that
you.
would be the closest. Okay.
Yeah. Um, so, but the point is the reflection.
Yes.
So, and any of these can work as tools, but they are not an end unto themselves.
Mhm.
The goal, I think, is that personal growth, and I just don't think many people
Utilize them with that
with
at
that
the
intention,
core.
that capital I intention.
Yeah, the personal
Uh,
growth or something more than just like, "Oh, this
mhm,
is what I am."
yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you think how I feel about astrology?
It's interesting because I remember growing up and, I'm a Libra
Mhm.
and,
Really?
my mom's a Capricorn, I wanna say. Yeah, it's funny because you think like, "Oh, that's interesting."
I don't know why that'd be interesting. I know nothing about this.
You don't?
No.
Okay, so Libra is a scale. And
Okay.
so it's like, I remember, like, occasionally, like, my mom would bring it up and she was a Capricorn and, as a Libra,
you kind of like see both sides and you can't like decide sort of thing.
That's not you at all.
That would be correct if you knew me today. But the other part though is in being kind of a challenger personality, I see multiple directions and then I decide and I
Very
choose the best
firm
path.
discernment.
I have firm discernment as an adult and where I'm
Mhm.
at now, and I'm confident in my decisions, but I do have the ability to try and see a thing from multiple angles.
Mhm.
And so I had that ability and I think it shone through, and because my mom was pointing it out, I think I saw it, that ability to see like all these different angles.
Do you think that the position of the stars at the time of your birth granted you those skills?
No, but I do think there's something interesting about seasons and what season you're born in based on how you experience the world. That sounds insane, right?
No, it doesn't. I want to come back
Okay.
to that because just to ask to sit in the question of does it matter? The
Oh, yeah. Does it give me a one up or a one
well,
down?
no, not
No.
even that. So the question was, do you think the position of the stars uh, affects you specifically? And I think the answer is who cares?
Yeah.
Because the goal is the reflection.
Okay. Yeah.
The goal is the process.
Okay.
And especially when it's something with something like astrology where it is pretty light.
Yeah.
It's who cares if you're sitting and reflecting on yourself and how
And
you
where
can
you're at.
grow,
Uh-huh.
and then who cares where it came from,
Uh-huh.
essentially. uh I on a complete side tangent, I have been reading this book called The Discoverers that's about like early exploration. um and what I didn't know about the constellations is it has to do with and why they're associated with months is it has to do with where the sun rises based on the month, because the sun, as you know, as you pointed out to me,
Uh-huh.
rises further to the south during summer and further to the north during winter,
Yeah, you can calculate local apparent noon at
which
any
is
position on the earth.
exactly what this book is actually about. How
Okay.
they discovered that thing so that they could
Which is the
make charts.
navigation thing.
Super interesting. It's about maritime history. I did not know I was reading this anyway. But they're saying how these constellations were figured out by multiple cultures independently, because it didn't
They
matter
just
if
saw it.
anyone in the northern hemisphere can see that those stars look kind of like a snake in the month that Scorpio is,
So it became an
September.
agreed upon frame of reference.
They all kind of came to that same conclusion independently,
Uh-huh.
because that's in a world where they're not under a roof all the time. They saw this shit. We don't see this. We're like, there's lights on all the time. I don't see the stars.
Uh-huh.
Quite a bit more now that we're in Florida than we were in Seattle. But I thought that was interesting. Total side tangent.
Well, and as that side tangent though, think about going back to personality tests and
Mm-hmm.
potentially the benefit is that it creates a relational agreed upon frame
Mm-hmm.
of reference.
Yes.
So that's kind of that would be a beauty to it.
It
It gives
can
common
be.
language. Yeah.
It can also be a cudgel.
A
You
cudgel.
heard me earlier say that's such an 8 thing to say.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something you know what that means. It's
Uh-huh.
agreed upon language, but it
Uh-huh.
also just limited you into this viewpoint. And
Like
we
into this box. If
yeah.
I wanted to see the worst for what that statement was.
Well, and even if you don't, it is limiting. And we've done this in groups of friends where someone will say something and I'll like hold up 2 fingers,
Uh-huh.
because it's I think it's taboo to try to say what somebody else is on in any personality thing,
Yeah.
because you don't know who this person is really, because you haven't done the work, you haven't done the reflection.
Yeah.
You can't do self-reflection on not yourself. So you don't
Yes.
know. But it's sometimes helpful, like, oh, this person might find this meaningful if they are this particular whatever.
Yeah, they
uh,
have this particular slant.
but yes, but it's kind of a bad habit that I don't think you do this, I do this, where I'm just like, 3, you think? Maybe 3?
Yeah, not very often. Like, yeah, and that goes into it, but that goes kind of back to specifically Enneagram and
Yeah,
typing
but
people,
again,
but
that's just because
how you're
it's the one we know. But you could do it with anything. Oh, that's such a Scorpio thing to do.
yeah, or like, Myers-Briggs, like I don't even know. I think I'm like an ENTJ something. And then there is another personality test that I did more recently when I was working at Bank of America, just for funsies with our team. We did the 16 personalities. And I do not remember which one I was. Like, there's an executive, there's a gesture, there's a
Oh, we did
didn't
that
yeah, I shared
because
it
you
with
posted
a group.
yeah, you shared it with our
And
church group.
and here's the thing. I
Uh-huh.
don't even remember which one precisely I was, but the biggest part that I enjoyed about it is it was kind of sort of Myers-Briggs plus
Uh-huh.
with this other thing. And in particular, there would be a dash and there would be an A for assertive or another letter that would mean like you were questioning. And so the one thing that I took away from that 16 personalities is I think a lot of people are in the questioning category. Like, they don't assume that they know what they're thinking or talking about. Did you find it?
I did.
But what's the other letter? The dash?
It's dash A or dash T.
T. Okay. And T is, I don't remember what the T stands for, but the A, I think, is assertive.
You were, and anyone who knows no one who knows you's going to be surprised. The commander.
There you go. The commander.
commander.
Yeah.
And
I did
in order
another one
for
too, and I was a captain.
in order for
Woot.
our marriage to survive, I was classified as the mediator.
The mediator.
And to put those in Myers-Briggs terms, you were ENTJ
A. ENTJ A.
and I was INFP T. I do not know what something. It's intuitive.
Yeah.
Necromancer. I don't know. I can't think of another.
Because necromancer.
Again, it's all vaguely occult. If you want to.
What is necromancer?
Necromancer is a person who raises people from the dead.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it. That's not what that N stands for. Okay.
But again, these things do all have kind of a vaguely occult vibe to it, which I think kind of makes it fun.
It's kind of fun.
It kind of makes it fun. But again, as long as you're either thinking of it for funsies, which anything for the lulz, or for the purposes of a
reflecting
personal
and growth
and reflecting and relating in a productive way.
Yeah, there is some value to it.
You can use a hammer to build a house or crush someone's skull in. And either way, it's the same tool. So
I think we explored it pretty well. We got into the nuance and the short stuff, and we got into the beauty of it being a useful reflection and tool.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows what will be the next big? I can only.
Well, they have
guess.
to come up with something because they're making money on this.
Yeah,
that's why they had to do the dash something, because everybody knows they're Myers-Briggs, so they have to take another test to do something else.
Yeah, there is one. I said it,
of course,
but under there, like I was a captain, but for some job I applied to, I did a quick. It's like, oh, this would okay. So it was set up where it was like, what do other people think you are? And there was just a big category of probably 150 adjectives. Mm-hmm. But it went to the next page, and it was the exact same words. Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of this idea of like how people perceive you, but versus how you perceive yourself, how accurate that is.
How someone else perceives your perception of their.
I know, it's so interesting. But I was a captain, so I'm gonna just hold on to that one as valid.
The greatest travesty that we've had in our marriage is you not getting that poor captain's job, because I'd love to call you captain.
All right, guys. I think we did it for personality tests.
I think that's all Christina can stand to me here.
Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and in the spirit of nuance, I hope you found something that you could agree with and disagree with and still choose to lean in. If you're liking the show, please follow us and share it with friends and leave a rating and review. Until next time.